us off. We'll give it to Darren here.
Coach, just a quick update on injuries. Pretty good going in the Frozen Four, and maybe a Bo update.
It's probably a little day by day right now with Bo, but he's out practicing, so that's a positive sign. He's still in red, but we'll probably not know until the middle of next week before we officially know. The biggest thing for me is he's got to be competitively ready. It's going to be hard, not having played, especially at the intensity level of the Frozen Four, if he hasn't, practiced physical contact, until next week. So, but that's something we'll play by ear.
Coach, is there a common thread or a theme between Notre Dame and Michigan in the 4 games you guys played this year?
Well, they improved, from the time we played them in early January to the time we saw them in February, and I think they've improved since then as well. I think that's just a sign of a team that's gaining confidence, and, it took some time to adjust to a new coach, and, I think they've gotten better and better. They're playing a real solid game defensively, and then they transition so well. So they're a pretty talented team top to bottom, and I think since Levine has played well, I think that's what solidified their team more than anything, where he's gotten to where he's at a high level. So they don't have any real deficiencies, and they've got a number of guys that are high-profile, good offensive players, especially that top line. And you think of Quinn Hughes on defense. I mean, they got some really talented players.
And last one for me right now is just with the way Gilbert and Wade have played and the physical nature of their game, how have they affected games maybe late in the year, including in Bridgeport?
Well, there's no question they've had a huge impact on the success of our team all season, and I think that's been magnified both in the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament. So we rely on them to play a lot of quality minutes defensively. But, I think Dennis especially, he's got the ability to do more than that. I mean, they keep the game fairly simple, but, he's a guy that jumps into the play and will, do some things offensively too. So Justin's pretty much stay at home, but, that's as good a stay at home as you can get, in my opinion. So, those two guys have been instrumental in our success. No question, they've given us a physical element, especially Justin. He was unbelievable against Providence. I mean, the physical aspect that he had on the game and the impact that he had on the game, it certainly set a tone for our team.
Coach, for this entire season, you've kind of been preaching how difficult the competition has been in the Big Ten. Seeing how much of a representation of the makeup of the Frozen Four is from this conference, just what do you think that says about the kind of competition that you have faced throughout this season?
I think we expected it. I think everybody anticipated that it would be even better than it was last year, and they had a couple teams in last year and didn't get to the Frozen Four, but they had 3 teams that made it to the NCAA tournament. And you look at programs that are on the rise, like Michigan's back on the rise. Michigan State was much improved this year. Ohio State's made great gains in their program. Penn State, you look at every program. I mean, there's not a weak program amongst them, and that says a lot about the quality of the programs. But with a few coaching changes, now another one in Minnesota. I mean, anytime there's a coaching change, especially with high quality coaches that they bring in, the league only gets better and better, because it's not just about the coaches, but the level of players that they recruit. So I expect the conference is going to get much more challenging than it currently is, and doesn't surprise me in the least that there's 3 teams in the Frozen Four.
And for the last several games, it's kind of come down to crunch time and, having to get a game winner in the final minutes or in overtime. Just, you obviously know your team as well as anybody, but just what are you learning from just the guys and, the fight that they've brought in those closing moments of each game over the last few?
Well, we had a long stretch of games like that this year, and I think it's helped us be prepared for them. And how to play in those type of games. I think that's helped us. Because so many of these games, especially even on this past weekend, I mean, could go either way. There was a great opportunity right before we scored the game winner against Michigan Tech. Just a little tap-in goal that Jack Jenkins made a great save on. And that's the way our teams, there's some puck luck involved in it too. It's not just about our mentality, but there's some puck luck involved in it. Hopefully it continues for another couple games, but I think that our team has shown resiliency. If we give up a goal, we have the ability to come back. If we get ahead, You know, especially late in the game, we've been pretty good. You know, we gave up the late goal on Friday night, but for the most part, we've shown a lot of resiliency regardless of the situation we've been in.
And last one from me. When you guys were playing Denver, obviously there were a lot of questions about just that Frozen Four appearance last season, and obviously it was the big focus was, hey, this is a new season, new team. Is that kind of just the same sentiment this time? Now, just going into this this stage, you know, it's a new team. We don't need to necessarily worry about the experience that we had last year, or do you kind of try to take a little bit from what you gained last year?
Well, I think that it's a new team that went through that experience last year, and I think that that's a positive for us as far as just all the distractions and all the things that go along with the Frozen Four. I mean, it's like a marathon. When you get there, it's nonstop, different events, media stuff. You know, it's just, and there's so much, you know, I mean, they do it the right way. I mean, there's so much pomp and circumstance around the whole thing. You have a red carpet entry, and you know, the band's playing when you leave the hotel, which we had this past weekend, which is just a real treat for me, just the enthusiasm around it. And then it's magnified by 100 once you get to the NCAA Frozen Four. It's probably not much different than basketball's Final Four as far as all the different things that go along with it. There's autograph sessions. There's so many different things that the kids have to go through. And then in the, you know, if you're fortunate enough to win the first game, then the Friday is even worse than the Wednesday. You know, it's just nonstop. You know, it's just from right in the morning till late in the afternoon. And then, you know, if you've got anybody that's in those prime awards in the evening, then it even goes longer. You know, if you have a Hobie hat trick guy, or if you have Mike Richter Award, they name the All-Americans. All that stuff goes on later in that day. So the off day is not really an off day. It's nonstop from the beginning, from the time you get up in the morning until you go, you know, to dinner at night, probably. So it's a matter of dealing with the distractions and all the additional attention from the media. And you know, I talked to our guys on Monday briefly just about, you know, the other part of it is to avoid reading too much into the social media and all the stuff that goes on online. Because I think our guys, you know, probably read into the fact a year ago that, you know, we're either this good or that bad, or, you know, Denver's going to do this or do that, you know. So, you know, they need to just be focused on us, and, you know, that's probably the most important thing, is to not allow outside distractions in any capacity get in the way of us being successful.
Jeff, is, I guess, sort of, the mindset going into this year's Frozen Four, is it kind of like unfinished business from what happened last year, as compared to, you know, being that underdog team last year that just kept riding that wave, but then getting a taste of it, and then now going back as now the top team heading into the Frozen Four? Is there that unfinished business mentality?
You know, I think that question was asked at the regional after our second game, and, you know, and I think Jake Evans answered it best. I mean, to some degree, maybe, but I think it's more about our team this year and about us just continuing our season. You know, it's a matter of playing for the next game. And, you know, I've told them since we started the Big Ten playoffs is that, you know, it's one and done season, and we need to embrace that. And I think our guys have, you know, because every game's a championship game for us. Because every game you play is either going to give you an opportunity to play another one or to be finished. And, you know, and I think they've bought into that, and I think we've played with it like, you know, it's a championship game mentality, you know, and that's where you have to, focus is so important, because it only takes one bad face-off, one bad line change, a bad goal by your goaltender, officiating. I mean, there's so many things that come into play. You know, everything gets magnified. So you really just want to focus on being in the moment, and, you know, I want them to enjoy it too, because, you know, with every passing week, they're just creating more memories for the rest of their lives. So it's been a positive thus far, and I just, you know, want them to stay focused on the same thing. Just enjoy the moment, live in the moment, and, you know, from shift to shift, period to period, let's just, we have one game in front of us right now, and that's all that matters.
Jeff, you mentioned some of those late award winners, and you have several guys that could be contenders for those. What does it mean to still be playing for you guys, for them, and then for your program, just to have, you know, so much attention on some of your players?
Well, I worry a little bit about, too much attention for Cale, especially because he's up for the Richter Award, and I'm sure he's one of the highest candidates for that. I would think he's still a legitimate candidate for the final three for the Hobie Baker. I think there's only 4 guys right now that are being looked at, and he's one of them, I think. And I don't know if there's any player in the country that's had as big an impact on their team as Cale Morris. And, that's why I think he deserves to be at least in the top 3 and, if not win the award, because sometimes I think back to just being a Tigers fan, I think back to that argument, 3 or 4 years ago when Justin Verlander had a great year. And, is the Cy Young supplemental to the MVP award? I don't know. I mean, for me, the Hobie Baker's the best player in the country. And if that, it doesn't matter if it's a goalie, a defenseman, or a forward. And if Cale Morris isn't the best player in the country this year, then I'm shocked, because we're still standing, and the reason we're still standing is because of him. But I mean, the same thing applies to the other guys that I think are candidates for All-Americans. The guys that that are first team Big Ten were certainly big All-American candidates, and Jordan Gross and Jake Evans specifically, and Cale. But it's not about the awards. It's just about they deserve the recognition. You want them to get the recognition. We'd love to have a Hobie Baker winner here someday. But the more important thing is that there's bigger prizes collectively as a team that I think all of them understand and probably prioritize.
Jeff, what's your schedule for the week before you, including leaving to go to St. Paul?
Well, we took Monday off, and we're taking tomorrow off, and then we'll practice. We practiced on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll practice again on Friday, and we'll probably have a good scrimmage on Saturday for a couple hours just to get that game intensity, so we keep that competitive edge up. We'll practice Monday and Tuesday, and then probably head out Tuesday night after practice.
Going back to the last 2 times you played Michigan, in more so the Sunday game that you played up there, they made their defense block, 25 shots or something like that? What can you do to, counter that? What kind of things can you do to alleviate?
Well, it's things that we work on all the time. I mean, a large part of it is you need to try and score off of different situations. If you get transition situations, it's not as easy to block shots. Whether you're creating turnovers from your forecheck, from your neutral zone defense, or your D zone, or turnovers off the rush. If you're creating turnovers, then you get transition, and that's we have to try to generate more scoring chances off transition, first of all, because in the D zone, their system. They play a different system, but very similar to UMass Lowell in the fact that they're going to have sometimes 3 guys in shot lanes, because they all retreat back to the net. So it's really challenging to get pucks through. So the most important thing is you just have to compete for that body positioning. You have to get, just like basketball with rebounds, you have to get position to the net. And you also have to get position, if it is a point shot, you got to get positioned for deflections, and then potentially get rebounds from there. So, there's things that we work on all the time. I mean, we've spent some time on some of those things already. It's not just about Michigan. I mean, a lot of teams are playing that way nowadays, where they're all getting in shot lanes. So, it's something that's become much more common. But that was a big factor, no question.
It seems like Andrew Ogilvy's been very consistent for you all year, but it seems like he's stepped up in the playoffs and stuff, and had a really big game against Providence, and yet it went unnoticed in the post game from people. But what's he been doing for you this season?
Well, he's certainly one of our most dynamic players with his speed and puck skills. It doesn't go unnoticed by us. He's one of our top forwards on our top 2 lines. We don't have necessarily a first line. We have kind of a 1A and a 1B. But the thing is that, I don't think he's not necessarily looking for accolades. I think that his attention will come to him, with success. And probably the most important thing, as you mentioned, is that this is the time of the year where your best players need to play their best. You know, the old saying is your best players play their best at the biggest moments, and that's what Andrew did on the weekend. But I thought the same thing could be applied to a number of guys. You know, Dylan Malmquist and Cal Burke, Jake Evans, Cam Morrison. I think all those guys up front. I was very pleased with the play of, you know, Michael Leary and Jack Jenkins. So there wasn't very many. I wouldn't say there was any weak links in our game on Saturday against Providence. I thought that they were all bought in, and they all, both forward and defense, I think everybody, you know, played at their very highest level.
And do you think, do you sense the kids from Minnesota, that going back to the Frozen Four in Minnesota, it means a little bit more to them that it's being played in Minnesota?
Well, I'm sure they're excited about it. You know, they'll have more family and friends there. Again, more distractions to get in the way, but, you know, I mean, that's, you know, that's good for them. You know, I think that it's more about the, you know, playing in it than it is where it's at, you know, because every year it's sold out, so it's not like a big deal. But for them, you know, being hometown boys, yeah, it'll matter. You know, it's always got a little bit more flavor to it as far as enthusiasm and excitement for them. So, you know, good for them.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Jordan Drosy next.
Jordan, how's it feel to be going back home to play your final games?
It's exciting. XL Energy Center is a great place to play. Really excited for the atmosphere that's going to be there. After playing in Chicago last year, we kind of know what to expect this year, so it's an exciting time.
Could you take us through your goal on Friday and how that all came about and what you saw from your perspective?
The overtime one?
The second one, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that was after the really long shift in the defensive zone. So all the guys on our team were pretty gassed getting off the ice. Their D-man stick broke on a one-timer, and that was kind of our lucky break for getting out of the zone in that shift. And I got the puck low to high and saw a lane and just shot it, and the puck kind of had eyes, made its way through.
What has it been like for just this kind of whirlwind of a tournament and the Big Ten tournament, just, you know, kind of going through and, you know, really kind of surviving and just sticking with it till, you know, till the final period, the final shift, and just kind of surviving on these game-winning, you know, I don't want to say miracles because obviously you work towards them, but you know, just the exciting finishes that you guys had. What's it been like just having so many of them in a row?
It's almost like it's expected now. We're going to try and kind of get away from that. Hopefully play more complete games and set ourselves up to not have to have a saving moment in the last minute or in overtime, and set ourselves up better throughout the game.
If you do kind of find yourself in that situation, is that something that does give you confidence, at least, that you guys have, you know, probably had more of those moments than most of the other teams that, you know, most of the other teams left in the Frozen Four, that you've had to kind of get through those types of moments so you can know how to handle them now?
Yeah, I think it's been beneficial for the team. We've done a really good job in those situations of staying calm and just keep on playing our game and just wait for our bounce, because we know that Kale probably won't let anything in back there. So just be patient and not try and like overextend ourselves and get too aggressive, and just wait for our opportunity to score.
When you kind of think about the, you know, how much representation the Big Ten has in the Frozen Four, does that kind of, you know, make it a little bit more special of what you guys have been, all the things you guys have been able to accomplish against that level of competition that's kind of proving to be some of the best now in the country?
Yeah, I mean, any league championship and playoff championship's really special, but I think it feels a little better playing against 3 of the 4 teams in the Frozen Four. So I think that's kind of a tribute to how good the conference was. There weren't any easy weekends throughout the year, and it's kind of showing now in the Frozen Four.
How different is it going from that underdog mentality you had last year to now the top dog mentality heading into this year's Frozen Four?
I think the team has a lot more confidence this year. We've all been through it. The Frozen Four's a lot of attention surrounding it, so the guys all know what to expect. I think that'll be a big advantage for us going into the weekend. So we're just focused on winning Thursday against Michigan.
And for how the semifinal game ended last year, kind of over pretty quickly, and it just sort of dragged out through the rest of the game. But in a sense, do you think that's helped you guys in terms of just preparation for this stage from what happened in Chicago last year?
Yeah, I think that was kind of what drove this whole season, the opportunity to get back to the Frozen Four. And then, like I just said, once we're there, we already know what to expect. So I think last year we got a little caught off guard with how big of an event it was. So I think we'll have an advantage going into it this week or next weekend.
You gonna have any additional distractions going home? Have you talked with family and friends? The fact you're coming home, but business to take care of.
Yeah, there's been quite a few ticket requests. Trying to tell my parents that I only get so many. So, but yeah, I mean my family understands that we're going there to win, and then there won't be many distractions outside of that. I'll be focused on playing the games.
You heard